Welcome to the Modernize or Die Podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die Podcast, CFML News Edition. It is May 23rd, 2023, and it's episode 196. Thank you, Dan, for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yep, we got a great long podcast this time after taking a week off into the box. We got lots of announcements, lots of blogs, a lot of interesting things have happened. Really cool.
And two talkers, so this should be fun.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely going to be talking away here. But hopefully you guys are joining us in the chat. And yeah, everyone's trying to catch up after Into the Box, but we're ready. So first up, thank our sponsors, Order Solutions. They're the makers of ColdBox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, TestBox, and they just had their 10th Into the Box conference, which was a big success. So yay for them.
It was fun.
Yep, so a few ways you can say back to Order Solutions if you want to thank them for all they're doing. You can like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. You can reach for the stars with orders. There's a little command box tool that you can run, and it'll like and basically star every ForgeBox project that's in your dependency list. So really cool to be able to do that. And of course, we want you guys to subscribe to your podcast on your favorite app, and then leave us a review. Reviews are really helpful. We don't have enough of them. We need more. We always need more reviews. So go leave us a review. Help us get up the list of podcasts there.
Perfectly positive, but we do like criticism, so let us know what we're doing good or bad. A couple of ways you can support us. Sign up for a free or paid account on CFCasts. We have new content pretty much every week. We have a whole list later on the show about new stuff that's coming. The Box Life store at ordersolutions.com about us/shop. Some Box Life swag, which is pretty cool. Actually, some of this, I can say our design department does it really good because we have like some really sweet stickers, just the design overall, I think is fantastic. Little tangent. Orders books. We have 102 Cold Box HMVC quick tips and tricks on that. That's on Gumroad. And then we also have the Learn Modern Cold Fusion CFML in 100 minutes, potentially less, but maybe a little more. That's free online at modern-cfml.ordisbooks.com. Or you can get an ebook or a paper copy at ordisbooks.com ordersolutions.com/learn/books/Cold Fusion in 100 minutes, or just go to the website and drill down, go from there.
Yep, and one of the announcements, there were lots of them at Into the Box. One of them was about the update. So, and of course, Scott's in the chat. Thanks, Scott, for joining us. He's asking about the 100 command box tips and tricks, winky face. Someone has to use AI to go transcribe all of Brad's little videos. He just made like 37 of them. So there's 37 hints, tips, and tricks right there. We just need to start compiling them for him because Brad's a robot, but not enough robots. We need more of them to make that book. So one day soon, maybe we should try and actually use AI to do that. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I had a really good comment that maybe just Chat GPT is just like a direct link to Brad's brain. And you just type something in, and it just kind of gushes forth knowledge and wisdom from there. That could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, transcribing all those videos would be a good start for sure. And some of them are long, but anyways, sidetrack. And thanks for our Patreon supporters. So our Patreon supporters personally support our plans with their own money, and we really appreciate them. Right now we have 40 Patreons, and I think we have one extra who's not able to use Patreon due to like geographic region issues. So 41, but patreon.com/ordersolutions, you can go find out lots more about that, and we'll give you some tips at the end of it. So cool. But just before we move on to the next section, I want to say thanks, Giancarlo. He says, hey guys, love your presentation on testing Dan, another great ITB in the books. Yep, for sure. JC did amazing. He had a hands-on workshop at ITB, and that was great too. And Scott was there. He presented on some AI stuff, which is awesome. So he did a lot of cool stuff in his presentation too. Yeah, it's good to see.
Giancarlo and Luis did a joint hands-on, right?
Yeah, and but Luis was amazed by the work JC did. All the stuff he's done, and like he's been busy, so he did most of the stuff in the last few weeks, and it turned out great. So it was super cool. So and good hanging out with them, and other speakers and patrons at the conference, and yeah, so very, very cool.
Agreed.
Okay, so let me switch up and let's do news and announcements. Obviously, we mentioned ITB, so we'll announce the other big announcement there. Adobe Cold Fusion 2023 was released. So
All right.
I think it was the day of the first day of the conference that basically they announced it, and they got some documentation up on the Adobe Cold Fusion site, and so Dan will get the link in there for you. But basically, they released it, and they've got quite a lot of features in there. I know we've been waiting for it for a while, and those have been in the beta, and then the sort of pre-release program got to see a lot of this, but the LDAP and SAML integration, got a central configuration server set up now. They got GraphQL clients. They've updated the engine and the HTML to PDF. They've done some more work adding cloud services. They've added JOT or JWT integration to CF as well, and they've got a whole link here on what's new. So I'll post that one real quick as well. But
Yeah,
that
I know it's pronounced Jot. I for some reason I just can't call it that. It doesn't look like Jot. Like I know that's what people call it. I
Yeah,
can't do it.
it's like those people who call CLIs Clees. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
It sounds like a Star Trek, either villain or animal or something like that. It's like
Exactly. So yeah, I agree on that one too. But JOT, JWT, whatever you call it, it's got a lot of cool stuff in there. You know, go check it out. And I know Mark Takata's been doing some sessions. Eric's like, even better, JWT tokens. And the funny part about that is, it's like, has anyone called an ATM an ATM machine before? Because the M in the
true.
ATM stands for machine, and JWT tokens is JW tokens. So JSON Web Token tokens. Not the
Or
best
Mount
name.
Kilimanjaro, because Kilimanjaro actually means mountain or has like the mount built in. So it's like Mount Jaro or something.
Yeah.
Random trivia.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, let's just do a little recap of Into the Box. So obviously, we did live stream a couple of things. We didn't live stream everything this year. We did live stream day 1 and day 2, and I'm posting the links in there for those who missed it. But the keynotes we live streamed the keynotes on day 1, day 2, not the entire thing. But the keynotes are there, so you guys can go watch them. There's about an hour of great announcements on each day. It was really cool to see, and we'll talk about some of the releases in the next section. There was a lot of announcements there, but we had 2 tracks of sessions, and we had 1 track of hands-on. So hands-ons were like a double session, 2 hours at a time, and they were going on at the same time. But they were really cool, and of course I've been looking forward to the SQL Sleuth one by Sean Oden, which you get to learn SQL while solving a murder, and he didn't think I was going to be in there, so he made me one of the suspects, because he had to make one of the oldest people a suspect, so I almost was the murderer. Luckily, SQL saved the day, and I was not prosecuted, but
Nice.
it was a
That's
good
always
session.
good.
And yeah, heard great things about JCs. Did you attend any of the hands-on, Dan?
I enjoyed the hands-on. I went to the pre-conference that John Clausen did on deploying logging web apps, and it was very good. I got about 2/3 of the way through it, and my brain just basically said, "Okay, you know what? You're full," which was
Yeah.
great because I'd filled in a whole bunch of knowledge that I was missing, like little things, like little gaps and stuff. And then I was like, "All right, I'm just going to stop here." I pushed pause and kind of watch the rest as opposed to really try to internalize it. But it was a really good the whole day, which is a really good presentation, which was fantastic.
Yeah, there was 5 workshops, and some of them were basically overflowing. They were full. Like John's one, I saw a picture like that room
Yeah,
had everyone in it, and everybody came out with their brains sore but full of good stuff. And like we had a
exactly.
smaller one. Obviously, we do API workshops all the time, so we had a smaller workshop.
Mhm.
But one of the guys, at lunchtime, he's from Penn State, and we had a great group. And he was like,
Nice.
"Man, I already got my money's worth before lunch." It was like by 10 o'clock, I was already got my money's worth, and all the rest is just bonus. And so it was really good to hear. Daniel Garcia did a great job leading that one, and I was in there, a sidekick, interrupting him periodically to random stuff. But yeah, so it was really good. We got a little bit of time in the end to dive a little deeper and answer questions, and so yeah, I know all the workshops were really well taken, so that was good.
Yeah. That
But
was good. Plus, what I really appreciate about conferences like that, I think Sean Oden said, I'm speaking of Sean, that's the best. There's always the track, the other track, the third track, then there's like the hallway track. This is basically one of the best parts about doing something in person is just the ability to just kind of you hang out and you chat. You know what I mean? You're in the hallway, you're in the lobby, and then there's like, just evening where everyone's like processing the day and everything else. And it just kind of puts things in perspective and people that you see on Twitter or that you see on, whatever kind of however you consume your news and everything else, they become actual people. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then you realize, wow, this person sounds, you know, even smarter in real life. And then it's just really interesting and kind of like I don't know, see more of the people behind the faces and names and everything else. It's pretty cool. I love in-person conferences. They're fun
Yep,
for the
and
most part.
like Sean Oden, he's not even a developer anymore. Like he moved to the DBA world a long time ago, but he still comes into the box because he gets a lot out of it, and he likes to share his database stuff and just hang with the people, and you know, and yeah, it's a great thing, and a lot of people are already like, see you next year, and there was an announcement next year we may be looking at changing locations now that our leader, Luis, has moved to Malaga, Spain. We're like, why are we still in Houston? Is there a reason for it? And obviously, all our gear is there because we store it from year to year to
At
save some
Luis's, yeah,
money.
gosh.
But yeah, storage facility. But we might be moving to another location, so we're looking at possibly Houston again, but maybe Chicago or another big hub like that. We had some weather issues affecting Houston on the way home, so some of us
Mhm.
got affected by that. But we're looking at some of the bigger hubs, trying to make it, maybe a little bit easier to travel, a little bit more affordable for stays, because I know that that is a factor. The conference itself is well priced compared to all the other conferences out there, except for those
Yeah,
big companies like Adobe and that they can, subsidize it with hundreds of dollars of marketing budget. But so,
exactly.
but
It's
yeah,
funny that you bring that up about Sean not really being a Cold Fusion primary developer anymore. Was laughing. We were out on the patio basically, and it was Sean, Adam Cameron, Brad, a whole bunch of people were out there just hanging out. A lot of people I didn't really know very well, so it was kind of cool. And I know Sean. I met Sean. I know Sean, like them, but I didn't really know him well. So just kind of hearing him talk a little bit, he's like, "Yeah, I like hang out with people." He goes, "I haven't done Cold Fusion in 10 years, but I'm still here." And I'm looking at him, and I said, "Well, Sean, I got a question for you. I like you being here. I think you're great. I love listening to what what you're saying. I love your contribution to what you're saying. But I'm really curious. If you're not doing Cold Fusion, why are you here?" And he basically says, "Well, in that case, I'm gonna." Anyway, he wasn't offended. It was just funny. But you're right. It is the community of people that was drawing him, and he's really actively part of it. So
yeah,
it was kind of funny to your point.
yeah. I mean, obviously we know the speakers really well, but I mean, it's a smaller group after COVID. Not as many people are traveling, but it's always one of those things. There's a ton of content not box related if you need it, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of good people, and they're doing interesting things and fun things. And we
Mm-hmm.
had a hackathon. It wasn't as big as we wanted it to be. We had some things to take care of, but Happy Box was a big success. There were people karaokeing. The Salvadorian team got their dancing shoes on, and the microphones out, and we started karaokeing. And apparently, it was such a success. They're gonna do that next time. But there was still a good little group hacking. We made quite a few fixes on the QB, not so QB,
Mm-hmm.
CBQ. There were CBQ
CBQ.
issues that
Mm-hmm.
we looked at a little bit and saw lock some of that stuff down after the conference. So version 1 and version 2 were released last week for CBQ.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did some work on the command box migrations. There was something going on Windows machines that was kind of weird. It was affecting Macs, but it wasn't so obvious. And so we got to the bottom of that.
Yep.
And then Brad and Scott and Eric were hacking hard on trying to fix Eric's, was SSH, Z shell or
It
whatever.
was they were doing a
Whatever.
deep dive on something. Yeah, I mean, they were like in the weeds, way down deep in the operating system, trying to figure out why Eric something wouldn't
Yeah,
start.
his Z
Yeah,
shell. So basically, Eric's the only person in the world that still uses this combination of stuff, and they're trying to figure it out. But we got to the bottom of a few things, but yeah, that never came out. So, but anyway, it was pretty good. We got some stuff done there, and then we still had Whataburger at midnight or later, and then and Eric's like, "Oh, Macs use it by default." And I'm just teasing him. So, anyways, but it was good. We had a good conference, and again, we'll talk about some of the releases starting pretty much right
yeah.
now. So,
Going from the keynote into releases, lots of releases. All right, so we're still waiting on blogs and release notes for a lot of them, but basically, ITB came, on the announcements. Um, Box 7 is out officially. Command Box 5.9, Test Box 5, CB Wire 3 was released. Their new, I almost said Cleese for fun. CLIs for Test Box and Cold Box. Still basically they're still built into Command Box, but they're gonna have their own release cycles, and so kind of separated out from being so integrated with Command Box, but they're still there. New releases for Quick, QB, CBQ version 1 and version 2, CB Debugger, Content Box 6. I think there was a couple more, but those are big ones. I mean, there was a lot that came out during those keynotes. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah, we
for
keep
sure.
trying to squeeze it into 50 minutes, and we just don't ever seem to be able to do that.
Yeah, we have a keynote on both days now, and it's still a bit of a push sometimes. But
Exactly.
there's so much great stuff, and I mean we don't just release or talk about the releases. We talk about the what's happened in the year too, like state of
Right.
the union, and it's great to see some of the updates and the numbers and everything. And I really like the fact that we're getting better numbers for command box installs. And
Mhm.
before we weren't getting all the installation details. We got a lot more from AWS now, and it
Yeah.
shows that we're using way more people are using it. I mean, we know because if ForgeBox has a blip,
Mhm.
people tell you, but it's just cool to see the numbers raising. And if you watch the keynotes, you'll see all those details. Um,
Yeah, Brad's basically saying how they basically kept adding everything from like the homebrew stats to who, what hit the S3. What was that one site that he was talking about? Was over 1 billion hits a month, and the whole cluster was being run from Command Box, which is
yeah,
pretty
so
cool.
Kai has a client that they didn't want to be named, but they have
Right.
8 command boxes, and they're doing a billion requests a month or something. He said it was like 4,000 a second or something across everything,
Yeah,
maybe more. I mean,
that's a
get the
lot.
calculator out. Yeah, it makes a happy face,
Mhm.
as Eric said.
Exactly.
But just back to
What's
Eric
cool
real
about
quick.
this too?
Oh, Eric's just back to Eric real quick. He said he wanted everyone uses the Z shell, but he's the only one that has custom aliases, and custom
There you go.
aliases is the issue with all of
Mhm.
that. So, all right,
Cool. Oh,
sorry.
just a quick thing about that, because I mean, obviously there was Into the Box, and we're sitting here talking about all these releases and everything else, and it's easy. This is the Ortus podcast, and it sounds like we're just patting ourselves in the back. There's a lot of cool stuff, but one of the key things I like about this is I think every single one of those packages that went out had contributions from the community. It wasn't just Ortus people putting it together. I mean, Luis was giving shout outs to like Giancarlo. He gave some to Scott. I mean, it was such a wide variety of people that all contributed to every single one of those. And just thanks for that, because it sounds like we're kind of tooting our own horn, but really it's a community effort that just happens sometimes to get funneled through Wordis and stuff through this stuff. But so thanks
Yeah,
to everyone that contributed. It was a lot of people.
yeah, for sure. And obviously we had a lot of speakers there outside of Otis. So it's
Mhm.
kind of nice. Like some of us weren't doing 3 sessions each. I mean, some of us were, but I only did 1 session this year and helped with the workshop. And previously, you'd have a few more. But yeah, we're getting more and more people from outside of Otis. And see, it's hard because especially when we hire everybody from the community, we keep absorbing them into Otis as we keep growing and growing. So it's hard to have a good number of speakers, but we had plenty. So there were some really great
Yep, really.
sessions.
It
So
was good.
yeah, cool. Yeah. Eric, sorry, Giancarlo JC said he was a little too happy due to Happy Box. He wanted to see about the hackathon stuff too, but some people just having too much fun. So that's okay. That's okay. Okay, well, Cobalt 7 was released, like we mentioned. So some big updates there. So it's got engine support. It's got the new Cobalt CLI. Wirebox updates, and some of the big stuff there was like the transient request cache to really speed up all of the object creation that we do. Delegators, property observers, lazy properties, on injection missing dependency events now, which is going to be way more helpful. Population enhancements, including mass assignment protection, hierarchical injectors for module dependencies. This one might cause a few problems, but it does have some really cool things that it solves. So I'm really excited to see that working. But module config object override files to try and break up your Callbox config into smaller files, make it easier to manage. App mode helpers, redirect back included as a back. Datetime helpers, whoops, upgrades. Oh man, there's just so many. JSON pretty printing on logbox output. Just it goes on and on and on. So go check out the link that I posted and find out more about what's in there. Next.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Then CB Wire 3.0 just came out. Well, that was interesting. CB Wire, it basically has over 19 enhancements, bug fixes, improved documentation. Those of you that don't know, CB Wire is an implementation of basically it's a way of rendering HTML on the server and have it come back and show up in the browser. Based on is it Hotwire or Livewire? I think it's
Live wire under the covers. Yep.
Livewire under the covers and stuff, which is really cool because one of the other things that was uh, talked about with the cold box release had to do with observation patterns for basically you can do like event oriented programming and stuff in the cold fusion backend. And I was talking to Grant and he goes, there may be a way to actually have one thing over here hit the server, make some changes, have an observer hit it, and then have it impact another part of an app when loading up separately. I have this vague idea of how we can do it and stuff, but not quite WebSockets, but maybe a different thing without having to go the WebSocket route. I still need to put that together, but I think there's potential there. But CB Wire looks amazing. I need to play with it, but
Yeah,
CB
CB
Flow,
Wire
yeah.
1 was big on just getting it working and getting,
Mhm.
some of the core features. CB Wire 2 had a whole bunch of additional, features and add-ons to bring it up to speed with all the other Livewire implementations out there. And then CB Wire 3, this is where Grant took all the feedback from everyone in the first two versions, and myself included, and it's like, what can we make it easier for people to sort of, onboard with this, because it's a little different than we're used to. So he worked
Yeah.
through a bunch of different things, and now he has like single file components. So the wire itself has the sort of the backend connector code as well as the front end code. So it just makes it easy to find single location, and he's got all these extra features. And if someone's using Vue.js or Alpine type stuff, it's got a lot of the same things. And remember, CB Wire is built on Livewire, and the same person who wrote Livewire built Alpine JS to give you the extra functionality. So CB Wire, Alpine work together great, and it can really allow you to sprinkle in some goodness without having to create a whole API. And that's sort of the beauty is, the API piece of it can still be a normal handler very simply, and
Right.
it works really well. So definitely highly recommend CB Wire. He has a ton of great examples in his documentation. Grant's laid it out to be a really user-friendly and developer-friendly approach to learning it too. So definitely check that out. Super cool. I mean, if you don't have a whole API built, this could be the way that you add that interactivity without going to the whole API route. And for those things that need it, great. But if you just need a little bit of interactivity, CB Wire is a great way to do that.
Cool.
Okay, so we had TestBox 5 released too. So TestBox 5 has a bunch of new stuff, and I believe that's running in the ColdBox 7 route. And so with that, all the TestBox, sorry, all the ColdBox efficiencies and performance gains gets translated into TestBox. So in TestBox, there's a bunch of things under the covers that is running tests individually, loading files, all this stuff. And so all of that stuff obviously makes way faster now that ColdBox 7 is in there too. So, better code coverage. We got the batch supporting, thanks to Michael Bourne for helping with that. So you can run different runs of your tests, different pieces, and then combine the batch coverage together. A lot of cool stuff. And at the conference, we actually announced Tide, or TestBox IDE, as Esme came up with the name. I thought it was pretty funny, like keep your code clean with Tide. But TestBox IDE is a approach we're working on to basically make it even better runner, and so you can organize your code, group things, test runs together, collections, see the history, so things improving over time, all sorts of cool stuff. She gave a little demo of what it's going to look like. We got to build it still, but the front end looks amazing, and we're excited for that.
I'm a little embarrassed to say how long it took me to figure out that it was Tide was TestBox IDE. Like I think it was my second time watching the presentation. Like, oh, got it.
It did take a
I was
while
a little
for
slow.
for everybody, I think, but it's okay. We all got there eventually. So
I do like it though. It's a cool name.
yep, for sure.
Mhm.
And so yeah, with that, we also have Fusion Reactor 10 was released May 18th. So this is outside of ITB, but it's still an important release. So Fusion Reactor 10 released, and then Charlie has a full write-up. He did say in this little article, I don't want to call it just plumbing. The folks had their reason to regard it as a new and changed features or in a major upgrade. So some of the reasons is probably backwards compatibility type stuff, but they've got an update out there. So Charlie's got the docs explaining it all. Fusion Reactor has all the release notes too. So good stuff to get out there. So Fusion Reactor is a great product. So keep on using it.
Agreed. 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 All right. So two CLIs were released the ColdBox CLI 1.x, basically 1.0, and the TestBox. What the idea here basically is that they wanted to separate out the development of the specific TestBox namespace in the command box commands to their own release cycle, and not having just tied to have like new versions come out whenever command box does. So it is, excuse me. Basically, it's everything from scaffolding new sites to creating tests, creating modules, creating everything that you could do with it now. But there is basically now has a life of its own in both situations. The TestBox CLI running tests. Basically, I didn't quite hear all the new stuff that was in there, but it basically was like creating tests, running tests, generating reports with either less commands. Some of them were combined a little bit. And yeah, so it's on it. But the big thing was that it was on its own release cycle, so that way they can do updates a little bit quicker. Well,
Yep. And then we had the new Auto supported ORM extension for Lucy. So Otis has finally taken over well, not taken over, but we basically forked the ORM extension. Michael Bourne's done a lot of work. Obviously, we love ORM at Otis. We use it a lot. Not all of our projects do. We use Quick and QB for a lot of things too, but Hibernate is very important, and so we're taking over and created our own extension. So the Otis supported ORM extension for Lucy is available. We got more information coming on that very soon, but not only did we basically get it up and compatible, we've also added a bunch of new features. Michael Bourne was releasing them last week. During the keynote practice, he was releasing new stuff in the Slack channels. We're like, man, we have to keep updating these slides. So a lot of great stuff going in there, and you do get the support of Otis behind it too. So if you have issues installing it or configuring it, or if there's problems, like we're there to support it, and that's one of the reasons we took it over, because we wanted to have more control of that. And if it's a core competency of your business, like it is for us, we need to have more control over it, and so that's what we're doing. So that blog post will be coming soon, but I just wanted to mention that is out, and I know that a lot of people are excited about that. So,
and one thing we missed actually in the whole list of updates, I forgot a couple more. One, we forgot that Content Box 6 was released, basically talked about. Another thing, actually, I think there's a whole thing. I don't know if there's a new version of CB Playwright, but I know that Eric has really been pushing that as a tool, which is really kind of cool. So, but the Content Box 6, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if we'd actually released that version, or if it was about to be released or not. So that's why I didn't put too much detail on it. Again, a lot of this stuff is coming out so fast, we just don't have time to get all the blog posts out. So we'll probably be giving you more details as the blog posts come out in the next week or so, and any change log information. But lots of great things coming out. So try them out, test them out. Give it a go and give us that feedback. And again, it's a lot of cool stuff, and excited to see things moving forward.
True. Content Box 6, either already out or coming soon. You decide.
Yeah, you can probably look it up. We will when we do the ForgeBox stuff, maybe. But let's talk about webinars, meetups, and workshops. So obviously we just had a big conference, so that kept everybody pretty busy from the Otis team. But we did have something today, which you would have been watching already, from Mark, the Adobe Road to Fortuna series, Cold Fusion 2023, in Docker on the Google Cloud platform. But that was postponed, so this should be maybe in June now. So he said he's going to push it back a month. He said there was some unforeseeable problems, complications. I know that he's Northern California, maybe he had some issues. I know that Eric in Utah had some internet issues, so he wasn't able to host today. So, the monsters are out there eating internet. Who knows? But I know that he's got a lot of great stuff. Now that it's released, they're going to have a lot more content out there. Yeah. So definitely keep an eye out for that. We'll be coming back with our webinars and stuff starting in June. And I know that the Sacramento Interactive has some stuff coming up soon, and the CFUG. If you go on the Facebook group, on highly recommend that, because the Mid-Michigan CFUG comes out there, and actually, I think just looking, was it Jim that runs that? I was trying to find, sorry, I'm going to look it up real quick, because we need to give a happy birthday to Rick Mason. He's the one that's been running. He's been running it for like 23 years for Mid-Michigan.
Wow, that's cool.
CFUG, and he's still going strong. There aren't too many that are still going these days, but his is. So happy birthday, Rick! If you're out there watching, definitely a good one here. And so Gary said
we have it on good authority from Gary Knight in the chat that basically Cold Box 6 or Content Box 6 is probably early June. That was announced during the workshop.
Cool. So I knew it was close, but I wasn't sure it was quite out yet. So thanks for correcting us there. But again, if you guys know of workshops and meetups and everything coming up, just ping us on Twitter, or send us a message, and we'll try and get these in these notes. But right now, the end of May, which is only a week left, man, it's going fast. No more meetups this month, but we will get the dates for everything coming up next month, June, very soon. CFCasts. Well, CFCast.com is the place for all your CFML content, not just box-related stuff, too. We got a lot of non-box stuff. And we got some recent releases, and those main ones are the 2023 ForgeBox Module of the Week series. We got a new video there, and the VS Code Hint, Tip, and Trick of the Week video. And then we got some new stuff just added, right?
Yeah, just added. We basically put in the 2019 box videos. Now, just to make sure that we're clear on this, we're going backwards on the end of the box. So 2022, 2021, 2020, we're already in the system now. 2019 has been added in, and Gavin, you do a lot of that editing and uploading stuff, so that's kind of that's a huge job that you do. That's awesome.
Well, sometimes it's there. We have a Vimeo, workshop stuff, and we're kind of like switching stuff more over to CFCasts because obviously CFCast hasn't been around that long, but there's tons of great content there. A lot of it is free, some of it is paid,
Mm-hmm.
and with your subscription, you get most of that content included. But coming soon, we have a special Into the Box 2023 video package that will be released soon, and that will be an exclusive premium package. So this is something that we're doing for some exclusive content. So subscribers will get that content after about 6 months of that exclusive window. So if you want the Into the Box videos, if you attended, you will get them included because that's part of your conference attending fee. If you did not attend, you'll be able to purchase that, and we'll have the pricing information available soon. But that will be an exclusive premium package. So even though you're a subscriber, you don't get that. You will get it soon. Like I said, probably Christmas time you'll get all that content, and we want to make sure that we're giving enough content to subscribers. But Into the Box video stuff, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and a lot of stuff. So, and it's great content, so it's worth a little bit of extra money to get that. If you're okay waiting, that's cool too. Then you will get access to all that information. But again, there's a lot of great content there. There's all the webinars that are free. There's all the Into the Box stuff, which is free and paid. But so that will be coming soon. We're working on all the editing. We didn't do it live because of all the complications with trying to manage who's in the room and not, and hosts and everything. We recorded it. So we're just going to go through, clean it up, and get it ready to post. So that made life much easier on our side. So we wanted to let you guys know we did record it. The hands-on sessions, we'll probably turn those into webinars shortly. So we did not record all of those hands-on. But we will be releasing all the normal sessions and hopefully webinars or CFcast videos for those hands-ons. Now they've given them a couple of times, they should be perfect when they do them online.
Very good.
Also, as we talk about every week on the podcast, we have ForgeBox and VS Code hint tip tricks. We release those as little snippets, so you can just get those as a little collection. Eric will be doing some ColdBox Elixir posts, and he's going to work on CB inertia.js stuff as well. And then Dan posted in here 10 testing techniques by Dan, and then some feature testing development with Docker by Dan. So lots of cool content coming this way. Obviously, we're just all trying to play catch up after Into the Box, but we do have some stuff coming out soon. If you did miss it, Brad had a ton of Command Box videos. So I think he had 27 or 37 videos on what's new in Command Box 5X, and I think he just released 5.9, so more coming your way, and 6.0 is probably going to be around the corner too. Whew. Well, lots of stuff in CFcast.
There's a lot. We didn't actually highlight this. So you're just going to keep going. You have the next 10 stories. Have a good time. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Let's get into conferences and trainings. And so, obviously, Into the Box last week, huge success. It was in person only. We had a decent number, more than last year, so we're building up again after COVID. The travel restrictions are slowly opening, and we're hoping to get more and more people next year. And again, just to mention, we're looking at similar timeline, so basically a week or so after Mother's Day in May, and we're looking at possibly Chicago or Houston.
We actually released dates, didn't we?
We did, but those dates are, based on the fact that if we stay in Houston. So we move to Chicago, we want to try and be somewhere around there. So again,
Gotcha.
15th, 16th, 17th, around the same time next year. But we're going to be doing some research and just see if it's better to move to a different hub or not. Like I said, we like Houston, we like the venue, but it's one of those things. It's a lot of people come, and if they've got to, travel, maybe a lot of people who are traveling into Houston, it's a hub, but not necessarily for all airlines, and so some people have to take a couple of tic tacs. So if we did something more like Chicago, it's still open, it's easier, closer to the East Coast for anyone coming from Europe. It's got a bigger hub for a lot of things, and obviously it's a big city. If we find a nice area of it that we have more hotel options around it, we could do some good options there.
I think
David,
that was the key part, finding a nice area of Chicago.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. Everyone from Chicagoland, that was a joke. Don't kill me.
But it's
Sorry,
also much easier to drive. I mean, obviously Texas is a big state, and we're in the bottom half of it. So if you live in Texas, it's great. But we moved to Chicago. Like John is in driving distance, Ellen is in driving distance, Kurt and Nathaniel, who came back from Computer Know-how, are in driving distance. So they'll be more willing to make the drive
Those guys were cool. I
somewhere
like them.
there. Yeah, they're great people. That's the first people I met when I first started ColdBox. I walked into the room, I met Brad and Luis and Kurt and Nathaniel and Seth, who wasn't able to make it. But if we were closer, he might be able to. But so it's a good central location, and of course, David said California is very central. I'm like, well, we have CF Summit in Vegas, and Vegas is another venue, but we don't want to have two conferences in the same venue or the same vicinity. So we're kind of trying to make it over there. Pete said, 1+ for Chicago, because I know he comes from New York, and so it's easy to get to Chicago. And again, I'd hope we can get more people from Europe as we start to travel more. And I think Chicago is kind of on that side. Anyway, we're looking at the options.
Speaking of Europe, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off.
Yeah, speaking of Europe, we did have the Adam Cameron in person at the conference too, so it was good to have him there. Got a lot of time speaking with him, and talking about, all sorts of different things. He's a big tester. He's already rolled out TestBox 5 for all of his applications. He found one bug in TestBox 5, and Luis fixed it right away. So it's great to have him still working in the language. His company is migrating away from it slowly, but we still do a lot with ColdFusion, and he helps with, even if he doesn't use it, he helps with Adobe ColdFusion, testing and everything else, and filing bugs. And I mean, he's very thorough, and it was good to have him. We caught up, spent a lot of time chit chatting with him about everything, and it's a great thing. And so it was good to have him there for the 10th special. So okay, anyway, enough about Into the Box. So we also have a Vue.js Conf this week. So VueConf US is in New Orleans, 24th through the 26th. So Jazz Code Vue. And then if you guys want to check that out, May 24th, tomorrow, is a workshop day. Main conference is 25th and 26th. And if you guys I think they do have online versions available. It's one of those things we need to try and get to some of these. We got a lot of people in the CFML community. We should try and figure out, okay, let's try and make one of these conferences. Obviously, that's very close to ITB, but we should try and do that. That way we get a group of people. We can hang out at the conference, learn some cool new stuff, but just another way to meet up with ColdFusion developers, because I really miss that. We need to see each other more. It's great catching up. And again, this one's a little close, but there's a couple other ones coming up. So just remember, though, a JavaScript conference is about $1,000 to $1,500 a day. So the one in California I was looking at was $3,000 for 2 days, not even including workshops. So when we say that we work hard to keep the price low for our conferences, we ain't joking. But anyway, if we can try and get to some, I know that conference that Daniel is speaking at later in the year, they have a family thing where a resort and everything. So we're trying to find some family fun ones we can sort of make it worthwhile. So. Okay, JC said Chicago, Boston. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I like that Boston idea. It'd be like a 20-minute commute for me, and it's a great area, just in general. Cool. Well, this is actually what I meant by Europe, but I think it was kind of cool that Gavin talked about Adam Cameron being there, which was a lot of fun. And evidently, Adam, you exemplify, you personify Europe for all of us. I want to thank you for that. But coming up also in Europe, in Munich, June 21st to 23rd. The actual conference is on the 22nd to the 23rd, but CF Camp, it is in Munich at the Marriott Hotel Munich Airport in Freising. Bunch of great sessions, some good speakers. Ortis is actually putting on 4 trainings the day before. So on June 21st, we have 4 things that we're offering. Getting started with BDD and TDD, ColdBox 7 from 0 to hero. We have a legacy code conversion to the modern world. Command box server, and then a 4th one is command box server deployment for the modern age, which is being done by Brad, and I'm sure that he'll highlight a lot of the new features, which is the multi-host tenancy and all kinds of stuff. Luis is doing the ColdBox 7 from 0 to hero. Eric is doing TestBox, getting started, and I am running the legacy code conversion to the modern world.
That actually reminds us, I forgot to say from the keynote, we talked about some of those Command Box Pro features. And so Command Box will always be open source and freely available, but some government agencies and some big companies, they require a professional version with SLAs for support. So we're releasing a Command Box Pro version which has that. There'll be a couple of small features that'll be, only really relevant to bigger companies anyway, that'll require it to be paid. But, we still have the free play with it tested out mode, but yeah, sorry, that made me think of that. We didn't mention that earlier, so now we have.
Sure, we didn't.
Continue.
But yeah, looking forward to CF Camp. A number of good speakers. A lot of topics, ColdFusion oriented, but also stuff like incident management. I'm looking forward to Kai's presentation on diving deep into errors, because it's funny. Erroring, it seems like it's simple. It's like it broke, it throws an error, but the layers that it has to go through to actually get up to the surface and things that can stop it and hide it and everything else is kind of crazy. He did a similar topic, I think, at Into the Box last fall, which was like a precursor, I think. And it was fascinating and really helpful for me at the time. Eric is speaking
Playwright.
at CFCamp. Say
Yep,
what?
yep. Eric speaking on Playwright. Eric,
Hmm.
sorry, Luis is talking about CP security. Obviously, there's a lot of other good speakers here. I'm just trying to see anyone's else. So Eric's also speaking about Vue.js and inertia. So that's another one. And then Charlie's speaking about hidden gems.
Hmm.
Richard Herbert's talking about multi-context Lucy with command box and mod CFML. Zach
Zach.
talking about server code.
Hmm. There's one on incident management that I was talking about. And then
Yeah,
some things on Massa.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, we're gonna have Mark Drew there talking about massive task scaling with Lucy's task event gateways and Kubernetes. Brad
Hmm.
talking about passing up the salt with serve up passwords inside of Interv. You're talking about React and CFML, a natural fit. I
Yeah,
don't know if I believe that, but I'll have to see it to believe it, I
it
guess.
is. I promise. I have real world proof.
Yep. And then yeah, so a lot of good stuff in here, and again some faces that we recognize like Nolan and David Tattersall, and then some new ones as well. So it's a lot of great
Is that?
content.
I think Pete's in the chat, but is that 25 code things? Is that you, Pete? Or was it a name by it? That's why I was curious.
I think it
Most
is. Maybe
dangerous software weaknesses in CFML.
I think that is. He did. It's pretty similar to the name that we had in Into the Box. So I bet he's
Gotcha.
just missing the picture here. So maybe they've got a bad picture or they're redoing it or something. But
Right. That's what I was wondering.
yeah, for those who are listening, we're showing the screen. So there we go.
Yes. Good point. Yes.
But
Nodding your head over a phone call, not helpful. Visuals over the audio thing. Again, not helpful.
yeah.
All right. What else we got?
Okay, well, we have that conference, and you're going to say, what conference? I did that conference. So I'll share my screen again for those. But that conference is a 4-day summer camp for developers passionate about learning all things mobile, web, cloud, and technology. And I will not subscribe right now. But they have a pretty cool conference, full stack, tech obsessed conference full of fun loving humans. They have the whole camping sort of vibe, and so you got camper tickets, and so they do 3-day camper with no food, 4 days for everything. They have family campers, so you can actually bring
Yeah.
your kids and your partner. And there's the wife. I would bring my wife, but a lot of people would bring their partner. But yeah, family campers can come across, and then they get to go to the pig roast. They have a bacon buffet with a pig roast. What? Like they didn't tell me about that. They told me about the water park party. I'm like, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Once they said the bacon buffet, I'm like, okay, why didn't you say that
Right. That
first?
sounds great. Yep.
But
Hmm.
family sessions, and actually Daniel Garcia's son is going to be talking about Rubik's cubes in the family session. He actually got approved as a kid speaker, which is super
Hmm.
cool. And then Daniel is speaking as well. So super cool there. But yeah,
I
a
also
lot of good
think that Daniel's
options.
wife is speaking in the family track as well.
Yeah, I know that
Uh,
she sent something in. I haven't heard that yet, but it's possible. But again,
okay.
it's super cool. But they have it at a resort that has a water park built in, so it's
Mhm.
just it's a cool thing. Lots of great speakers, a lot of great content.
Yeah.
And every year it conflicts with one of my family events. We do a water polo junior Olympics with the kids, and it keeps
Oh gosh. Okay.
conflicting.
Cool.
So I need to make it so it works. So next year I'm gonna have to tell the Olympic Committee to move the tournament, but I'm gonna
That
submit
that
at
is pretty
least.
inconsiderate of them to have it during that conference. I agree.
Yep, and they do have other stuff too. So it's kind of cool. They actually have one out in Texas, but that conference is one that the computer know-how guys go to as well. So like Kurt and them, and yeah. So here's some dates in here for, pre-conference and ticket blocks, and this is kind of nice to have the dates you need to know. Maybe we should do that. Scott's saying which conference? That conference. Seriously, it's called that.us. But yeah, a lot of good sponsors, a lot of good speakers, etc. So
Cool.
very very cool, and yeah, they have other events in other states and different things, and really cool. I mean, that's how we actually Daniel met the guy from Ingrok, and he came and presented about OAuth at
Yep.
Into the Box. So we were making connections too.
Mhm.
So it's cool to get out there to other conferences outside the CFML bubble, meet other people, other technologies, because we use a lot of other technologies. And so that was one of the ideas too, is for next year ITB to maybe make a set of sessions which are strictly non-CFML content. So obviously they would be interfacing with them, but it's nice to have other stuff there too available for everybody.
Plus, no one language actually has, or one language community has a monopoly on how to do things. So we like how we do things and everything else, but also there's cross pollination that happens everywhere. I mean, we take ideas from Laravel. We kind of, we've communicated CF dump things to a bunch of other ones, and it's good. I guess it's part of like I don't know, being a citizen of the tech world, not just as people, but as a community into the language.
Yeah,
It's
for
kind of
sure.
neat. Mhm.
Okay.
Also coming up, this is coming up in a while anyway. The 2nd through 4th of October is Adobe CF Summit West. Session passes are $99. Professional passes are $199. I don't quite know the difference between those two things, but I'm sure that there's a very, very significant one.
Professional passes include
Um,
the certification for the Adobe professional
that's
certification, which is the final,
mhm.
the third day. Sorry, the third day in there is 1 day training and the test, and you actually get a
Cool.
bunch of content beforehand. Which I went through it all last year. Me and Daniel went and got our certification. Sean Odom was there; he got his as well, and quite a few other people from the community
Congratulations.
were there. So anyway, keep going.
Raw Semi contest basically is supposed to gather into at least 3 of the photos on the website for the conference. So if you can find him, you will win bragging rights, I suppose. We're
You
going to
can use
actually giving
Command
away
Box,
prizes and stuff.
yeah,
But
Call Box for free.
yeah, we will give you a version of we will give you a copy of the open source version of Command Box for free. Now, this is that the call for speakers is open, so if anyone is interested, just drop an idea. Now it says only till May 31st. I mean, is that the call to speakers is open till
Um,
then?
no, that's for the pricing. So let me actually pull it up real
Oh, the
quick.
pricing goes through there. Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to be honest,
that's the
last
early bird
year
pricing.
they left the early bird up a little longer,
Okay.
but basically they throttle it to get the number they want. They want a certain number and they keep it as low as they can to get there. So usually they sort of cap out about 500 people or so. But early bird passes are $99 until May 31st. So I would grab it even if you're thinking you might speak there for $99. That covers your food, breakfast, and lunch for 2 days, and you have great content. Definitely recommend it. And Adobe always steps it up on release year. So it's a release year.
Yeah.
They're going to have even bigger, better parties, more things
Mhm.
going on, more bits and pieces. So
Mhm.
again, I won't show you which one's which, where we are in these pictures, but it's back in the Mirage. So we're going to be back there. And then
Very nice.
Otis is going to do a training. We're trying to get the dates solidified. It's solidified. It's really hard to do that with Vegas because everybody wants you to fill out 300 forms to get anything quoted. But we'll be doing a Cold Box Zero to Hero training. CF Summit usually is a little lower, more entry level information. It's not always, but usually there's 500 people every year and 450 people I've never seen before half the time. They're all new
Right.
developers, and so we have a lot of people there. It's great to see everyone. There will be the regulars as well.
Mhm.
So me and Luis are going to be running that training. We're planning on being there, and actually maybe we should ask people: do you guys prefer to have the Saturday Sunday training beforehand, or do you prefer to have the sort of the Wednesday Thursday training after the conference? We're looking at both sets of options depending on location and pricing. We're trying to make it affordable. That's always the trick, is because all the business venues close on the weekend, and the ones during the week you have to find a hotel that doesn't have a full conference room set up, and a lot of times it's pretty busy. But we are working on getting that now that we have the dates. So let us know if you prefer weekends or weekdays. And but yeah, Cold Box Zero to Hero. If you've gone through it and you've seen it and done it, great. If you haven't, um, you know, that's a great way to start Cold Box stuff. You get to know everything. It's 2-day workshop, which gives you more time to do everything, and we really get into a lot of detail. Now, if you have done it, maybe there's some developer friends that you think should be taking it. Spread the word. So,
All
yep.
right. And for these and other conferences that you may be interested in, there is always comps.tech. This site has a huge list of conferences for almost any language community. And we'll put that up there.
Very cool. Okay, we're
Round
going a
it out.
little long because we're talking so much, but lots of great content. We kind of have to. We'll probably zap through
Speed it up a little
these.
bit. Sorry about that.
Yep, we'll zap through these blogs a little faster. So,
Mhm.
yeah, first up we have Benadell using Bug Snag as a server-side logging service in Cold Fusion. So that one there I'm posting right now for you guys. But it's pretty interesting. I think Michael Bourne created a plugin on ForgeBox for it if you're using it. So you can use that from Coldbox. But yeah, so he's basically built this here, and they do have a free tier, so he signed up to try it out, and he got everything up and running. So it's a pretty cool little setup there. And obviously, we talked about some of these other things. We can really zap through
Right.
some of them here. You want to tell us the next one?
Yeah, Testbox 5 was released, as we've said a couple times, but here's the actual blog post to go look at it. Yeah, check out the Order Solution blog, and it talks more about everything it covers.
Yep. And then next up, we actually have one from Brian. I think it's Brian Riley. Um, he's the Hoya Hexa guy. But he spoke at CF Summit East And so when he was there, he talked about encryption, and they were talking about the CFMX compatibility algorithm and the encrypt function, way back in Cold Fusion 4, and that CFMX compat was the only algorithm available essentially, and so they've added more and more things, and basically most developers don't know, or hopefully they know, but yeah, don't use it basically. And so he talks about different bits and pieces and breaking down. And so again, security is important. We all need to know it. It's not something we can just patch on at the end of the day, right? We should probably be doing it from the start. So there's certain things we should avoid. So definitely recommend this blog post to getting in there. Otherwise, Pete will come get you. Yeah. So it's one of those great blog posts. Security stuff I think is more and more important, and we need to get more people doing that from day one.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
true.
And then we did have Nolan talk about speaking into the box 2023. So we'll skip over that one pretty quickly, but he did blog about that. So
And
um,
for that, we say thank you. I'm glad you're there, Nolan. It's good seeing you.
yep, and he spoke as well, obviously, and he's always a big promoter of Cold Fusion, and great to have him there.
Yeah. That was cool. All right, moving on to some from more about Ben Nadell. So Ben is kind of has an ongoing series about using JSoup, and this is some of his findings and stuff as he goes through. So he has two. One of them had to do with using JSoup and embedding GitHub gists into his website, and he kind of goes through a process where he had to kind of decode a little bit. But the one that's up on the screen now was about maintaining white space using JSoup and Cold Fusion. This is one of those things that I think is fascinating. How you have front end development with things like CSS, JavaScript, HTML, and the back end development, and how to transport one to the other, we sometimes have to figure out kind of ways of bridging that gap. So the problem here was basically that JSoup was not picking up some of the CSS, and he talks about how to actually do that. And he found out that by tweaking the JavaScript settings, he actually could bring in some things like white space and everything else without CSS being read, which was kind of fascinating. So if you want having more information about that, go check it out. And then the other one that I said, importing the gists into his site using JSoup, was interesting, and actually just some of the processes that he went through, sort of a little bit of a contortioning, but I thought it was really cool. I
Yeah,
actually want to use that for a class I teach.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one thing about Ben. He always wants to understand it. He wants to dive into it and learn, and so usually he does exactly that, and that's why I always like his stuff. Sometimes I gotta watch a video to keep sort of get my head wrapped around it because there's a lot of stuff
Right.
in there. But very cool. We had another one from Adobe, obviously introducing the release of 2023. So we have that one there, and we had Luis's on ColdBox 7. So we have the blog post about that. So I'll share that link as well. And then next up, we have the one that we just talked about for Ben Adel because he had a little series as we mentioned. Again, we're kind of flying through these, but then Nolan talked about the sessions he wanted to go to it into the box as well. He released that one, and then this one I'm actually going to share my screen. And I'll let you talk about it a little bit while I get that ready. But Charlie sort of broke down the Coldbox, Adobe CF 2023 release, and I think that's worth taking a little bit more time into that. So
Yeah, agreed. I don't have a lot of the details on 2023 yet. I was kind of getting ready for the ITB and my head was down a little bit. But yeah, it is amazing to me how quickly, and I know that there's preview sessions and there's preview versions and everything else, but how quickly like Charlie and Pete and everything else go through a lot of the features and say, okay, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool, this could be a problem. This is amazing, and this is actually how you can use it. I don't know. I think those guys are great.
yep.
Um,
Also,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so that's okay. So a big change is that with 2023, they've been working hard to get Java 17 working. It's not highlighted on their announcement page, but yeah. It also talks a little bit about the licensing changes or whatever, and the pricing has not changed since 2021, which is a good thing. So yeah, so basically the what's new doc here talks about some of the new features. I know that certain people in the community are not happy that none of the features that are released are developer friendly features. They're all more marketing things, or they're not like language specific changes. So
Right.
that's that. But they're trying to. They obviously got to appeal to the marketing people, and they got to get stuff done for people. But I know that if you ask Brad what he wants, he's gonna want deeper Java integration so he can do the things that he wants to do because we can't do that. as developers, we can build certain things, but there's certain things that the engine has to do, and we want them to do more of that. But they
Right.
did do a lot of interesting things, But and so a lot of people maybe working with GraphQL, having a client for that is
Mhm.
important. Other people they might not care. So there's a lot of things in there. Again, there are some bug fixes, which are obviously always good to have them. I think some
Mhm.
people said that they finally got notifications after years that bugs were finally closed. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
but yep. So they have a lot of different stuff in here. So changing the OS support. So different servers are now available for support, and that's one thing too with Cold Fusion. If you're using certain things, they will help you a lot more than others. And so if you're using Adobe and you're paying for the license, it's really key that you stay on hardware that they will support. So
Yeah.
and
No,
then
agreed.
and then again, he goes through the details on the EULA licensing or whatever. But basically, here the significant difference is instead of saying computer, like what it defines here. So it looks like each virtual environment will be compounded as a separate computer. So when they talk about licensing for certain computers, it's different. And also, there's an instance means a single installation through hypervisor, where hypervisor means software firmware. So they've gone through details. And I know that some people are just really struggling with the licensing and the whole contacting you. I know that there was a tweet over into the box about it, and they were upset that Adobe, because they're using a SaaS business, it had a lot more ramifications. And so if you're doing a SaaS, the licensing can be a lot more tricky to nail down. So, but again, Charlie goes into great detail on all this. Um, so definitely want to check this out if you are looking at purchasing 2023 or migrating to it. Um, Never go past Charlie's stuff. A lot of detail.
Yep. Yep. That makes sense. That makes sense. Pretty much most. I mean, pretty much everything Charlie says is pretty relevant and on. I mean, he's fantastic. Well, I remember we hired him to help out with a client a little while ago, and this is before I was with Ortis, and I couldn't believe it. He actually diagnosed the problem. I think it was within 20 minutes. I mean, just the whole thing was just fixed.
Yep.
Really kind of cool.
And the thing I like about Charlie too is he'll explain it. He goes into great detail
Yes.
in all his blog posts and everything else, but he doesn't want to just, basically you pay him for his time to fix it. He actually explains why and how to
Yeah.
prevent it and everything. So that way, you're learning something from it. He knows he's get repeats customers by happy customers, and he doesn't do much marketing. He doesn't go sponsor conferences and everything else. Most of the time you see him at a conference, he's actually helping someone like Fusion Reactor or one of the companies,
Right.
the tools that he uses. But he uses all the tools because he uses whatever the client has, and so he's very busy on just supporting Cold Fusion developers.
Mhm.
But yeah, he does it because he does great service. He fixes it quickly. He educates you. He helps you, and I think he even has a money back guarantee. And he says he's never had to use it because no one's ever complained because he does the job, does it well, and explains it in
Yeah.
details. And so yeah,
Agreed. Agreed.
okay,
Excuse me.
moving on. We got
Mhm.
another one from Ben, right?
We do. So that actually, this is what was really interesting. When I first saw the headline, I was like, "Why are you doing this?" The title is using CSS Flexbox to create a simple bar chart in Cold Fusion. At first, I wasn't quite sure what he meant, but the whole idea here is that usually when you're doing a bar chart or some other kind of graphing thing, you would use a really robust library like D3 or some other JavaScript-based charting tool. What he did with this, he basically was able to use CSS Flexbox and data that was coming from Cold Fusion. And Cold Fusion, the rendering of that data converted, basically used Flexbox to create the chart with zero JavaScript, which I thought was pretty fascinating. And the how-to and the details on there are in the blog, and worth checking out if you do any kind of a visual, you know, you know, um, visual layouts or graphing of data and everything else. It was really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I always like Ben's detail, but Flexbox is something that we probably use a little bit, but we could probably learn a lot more. But Nolan did a CSS session as well at the end of the
That's
box. So
exactly what I was going to say. Is that we had a session at End of the Box about it.
yep,
Mhm.
for sure. We
Cool.
also had Charlie sharing his thoughts and information on the Fusion Reactor release. So again,
Mhm.
we'll just drop the link in that. We talked about that being released just recently. Version 10. Oh my gosh, they're up to version 10 already. It's crazy. And then we also had Grant. So Grant talked about CB Wire 3.0 and everything that came with it. And he did a session on it, did a workshop on it. So a lot of great stuff. And I heard he might be trying to put together the CFCasts series on the CBY workshop, essentially. So that might be coming very soon, too. So lots of cool stuff there, lots of blogs, tweets, videos, and all the rest. Let's move on to find a job.
Yeah, if you need someone to pay you to do all the cool stuff that we were just talking about, there are several job positions open. First of all, you can check out getcfmljobs.com. That is, yes, sorry, my brain just all of a sudden just stopped working there. Over 67 positions in 43 companies across 32 locations in 5 countries. That was a lot of numbers in the same sentence. A couple new jobs. We have a full-time position. This is a cold fusion programmer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Didn't follow the link for like the pay and stuff, but that's a get CFML jobs as well. We also need a remote, or we don't, but a cold fusion engineer. It says at remote. That's in the U.S. Doesn't really say where that's based.
Yeah, I'll open it on the screen here. I'm sharing my screen. Mm-hmm. So this one's shop.com. So this is the Market America people. I think they own shop.com.
Okay.
But yeah, they have different offices in a couple of different places. I think they're in North Carolina. There's one. The Java shop is in California. So
okay,
interesting. And then we have a couple in India too. So Cold Fusion lead in Pune, Maharashtra, and then another Cold Fusion developer. So this sometimes are the same links from different engines. So this is a cool thing. You can go click this button right here, and no charge, completely free. Post your job. If you post them in other places, it does pull those in. So a lot of these jobs are from Indeed or different providers. It scrapes those and pulls them in based on that. So again, it's a Cold Fusion site for Cold Fusion jobs. Post your jobs, look for jobs here. Nice to have a nice resource for that locally.
Yeah. Speaking of India, actually having Yogesh, one of the sponsors, I think it was not Lucid Consulting, but it's Lucid. His company Lucid is based in India. They do a lot of cold fusion programming. He was actually at Into the Box,
Yep.
so it was really good meeting him and talking to him a bit. And he won the award for who came the farthest to go to Into the Box. We figured India was probably as far away as you can possibly get.
Yeah, for sure. It was great to meet him in person. He does a lot of stuff online. He does a lot of work for us, the community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I say us, so there's a lot of content box themes out there that his company has created, and they're always contributing to the docs and CF docs and tickets here and issues there, and they do a lot of great work for projects, and we've used them in sort of companions for different projects across time as well. So they do a lot of great stuff, and they don't just do Cold Fusion, they do other things too. They do some JavaScript stuff, and so they do have a lot of good options. They got a good team, and yeah, it's really good to meet Yogesh. And he was a sponsor, so we again thank him for sponsoring ITB, and you guys should totally look at his company as another option for outsourcing if you need additional team members or projects. So
yes, and apologies to Yogesh. I knew when I was saying it was wrong. It is not what I said before. It's Lucid Outsourcing Solutions. I knew it wasn't Lucid Consulting. They're in Australia, but it's Lucid Outsourcing Solutions. And he was an Into the Box Silver sponsor and Adobe official CF partner. And
Okay, let's talk about ForgeBox module of the week, and this week we're going to be talking about a module that we've been using forever. You should be TestBox. So we haven't covered this in a while, but with TestBox 5 coming out, I thought it was a good time to remind everybody and put that there. So obviously you do a lot of work with testing, and one thing people forget, and I want to remind them, is you do not have to use ColdBox to use TestBox. Right?
True.
You can use TestBox to test your old CFML apps. I mean, to be honest, you could use TestBox to test just JavaScript. Like you can use it to test your API. You can test it to do a lot of different things. It's just a testing library, and Cold Fusion is obviously powerful enough to make HTTP calls and everything else, and TestBox does a lot of great things there. We got CLI runners, we got HTML runners. You can spit out JX unit tests when you're running tests in your pipelines. You can actually spit out an XUnit test variable, so a lot of the units all run the XUnit stuff is in a lot of pipelines. So in your pipeline, it can show you the number of tests you had, successes, and our code coverage stuff can spit out that as well from TestBox. So in your pipeline, you can see your test completions and everything else. You can run it from your command line in your in your VS Code with TestBox Watcher, so we can actually watch your code when your changes, run your tests. You can run it in the browser. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. And again, TestBox IDE is coming soon too. So a lot of cool stuff in there. Highly recommend it. Should be testing your code. If you're doing it manually, well, that's fine, but think about all the time you could save if you can automate some of it too. And I always say, at least have a sanity check, right? Can my code
Yeah.
compile? If I hit my
Hmm.
CFC and it doesn't, basically if I create my CFC and it compiles, that's like one part of the puzzle. Like sometimes you copy paste something, or you go to control save and you hit some other character, something weird gets in there. That
Hmm.
syntax is bad. You push that code, at least if you have a test on it, you'll know that it can compile. You've got no
Right.
syntax errors at least. And like even for someone with legacy app, that little test can save you so much trouble. So highly recommend just getting something in there. Remember, the more you do, if you add a little bit every day, baby steps, you're always going to improve. It's incremental, and you'll eventually get to the point where it's more and more useful and valuable to your company every day.
And along with that, TestBox, what's kind of cool, yes, its primary focus is testing. But from a development point of view, and I'm not talking about write your tests first development. I mean, that's a whole separate thing. What I mean is just the ability to run the function that you are working on in isolation over and over again without having to go back to the interface. Excuse me. That's a huge part. I use TestBox for that a lot. In a sense, I'm setting up a test for it, but really it's a test that just runs the function. So while I'm developing it, I can actually see what's happening, what's coming back from it. So it's a development tool as well.
Yeah, and that's the way I think of it too. Like, usually when you're
Mhm.
programming a function, you think about, okay, what are the possible, inputs and outputs this function can handle? What's the
Mhm.
happy path? What's the sad path? Or the bad
Right.
path? And so those edge cases, I'm always thinking about those edge cases. So I make a test to hit those edge cases, so I don't have to do it every single time for every single thing. And it,
Yep.
it does make a big difference. And like I say, it may not be test driven development, but usually, if you are trying to hit those edge cases, you will design your code a little better. You'll make sure that you cover it, and it does help a lot. So, you know,
Sure.
TDD is hard for people to swallow, and they think is waste a lot of time. I'm like, you think about how much time you waste when you're trying to test it manually, because we are testing. We're just usually clicking around in the browser with our
Right.
mouse, hitting F5 a bunch, and again, if you're trying to
Mhm.
test that the password creates a user, the function creates a user properly after you've logged in, registered, you're probably going to refresh your page, go to the registration page, fill out the details, hit the button, and then you're like, oh, okay, that one worked. What if I put an email address that's already been in use? What if I use a username that's too short? Now you're testing all those edge cases yourself manually. If you can automate most of those, you can still do your happy path test manually, but at least you've got all those weird edge cases covered. And
Yeah.
so anyway,
Sure.
TestBox is great. We do a lot
Mhm.
of work with it. If you look at it, the syntax looks like a lot like Jasmine. We
Mhm.
learn a lot of things from other great testing libraries out there. So start using it, even for something simple. And then, yeah, and as Eric puts, you can do awesome stuff like with CB Playwright where you're actually clicking around. So you can actually, Playwright can actually open up the browser, it spins up the browser you want too, and then it allows you to actually, click on a field, type something in, click on another field, type something in, hit the button, check that the title of the page is now, that you've logged in successfully. You can look for a menu item to show that your favorites are showing or whatever. And CB Playwright is awesome. Cypress is good. CB Playwright's another level. I really love all the stuff that they're doing, and then Eric's brought that in to TestBox to make it easier for you to use in TestBox with CB Playwright. And so
Yep.
it's really cool. So check out TestBox. Easy way to get started. We got lots of videos on it and everything else, and we'll probably be doing some more. So okay,
Cool. Moving on to
next.
the VS Code hint, tips, and trick of the week. I don't know why I jumped in here. I don't use VS Code, but basically the one for the week is the SSH preview, the Visual Studio Code remote module. Did I get that right?
Yeah, so this one here is something that that a lot of people are not using as well as they probably should. So the cool thing about VS Code is they actually allow you to do some remote code editing, and sometimes you want to spin up an environment, you're working on a certain project, but you don't want to have to install all those tools locally or all the extensions or any of that stuff. You can actually hook up VS Code remote to SSH into a box. So Amazon has all these cool like remote developer boxes. You could actually spin up a DigitalOcean box essentially that's the right, like this is a production environment that I'm going to deploy to. You can actually spin up a cloud instance and basically put the code on there and then SSH in using VS Code and treat that like your developer box. So it's really cool that using SSH you can connect, and it's like you're on the same machine. All the stuff is there. The cool thing is that you can get a larger, faster machine, and you basically treat your VS Code in your machine as like a client, like a thin client to a thicker server. The cool thing is that way you can access it from wherever you need to, and a lot of people are doing those AWS workstation type images now. A couple of clients, they would do that essentially, that you give you a laptop, and then all the laptop does is allows you to connect to another machine elsewhere. So it allows you to debug applications running on a remote site. No source codes on your machine or whatever else. So for security reasons, some of those companies, they don't want it on your machine, so this allows them to keep that directly separated as well. It's cool though, because it works. Just the VS Code works like it's on your machine, like the code is there and everything's there. So it's a really cool little tool, and again, it's great for debugging too. If you ever need to, why is my staging server not behaving the way I want to? Obviously you could SSH in and do some work there, but usually refrain from that as much as possible. But just as a developer, there's a lot of cool options with it. So Visual Studio Code Remote SSH, and it is a preview, but it's by Microsoft, and they even have another one which is SSH Editing Configuration Files function. So I think that allows you to SSH in or change configuration files that you need to SSH into, but they do go together, and it's a pretty cool little extension. So there you go.
Sweet.
VS Code, hint, tip, and trick of the week for you. Remote SSH with VS Code.
Sweet. Coming soon to a CFcast near you. Well, thank you for tuning in with us today. Thank you for all of our Patreon supporters. This has been a really good hour. I had a good time. Thank you. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. These individuals are personally supporting our open source initiatives to ensure the great toolings like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, ContentBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes that keep getting the continuous development that they need and funds the cloud infrastructure that our community relies on, like ForgeBox for our package management and CommandBox. What we didn't actually say what our word for the week was for our Patreons. It is proficient.
That might have been last week's. I don't know. I didn't get to that one, so I didn't say it. But they're so proficient.
They are so proficient. We had to do it 2 weeks in a row.
Yep. So of course, if you are a member and you have the bronze packages, you'll get stuff like ForgeBox Pro and CFCasts subscriptions as perks, but all Patreon members have their own profile badge on the community website. They have their own private forum on the community website, which is community.autosolutions.com, and all Patreon supporters have their own private Slack channel, so you guys can bug us privately, and we can give you guys little sneak previews and stuff as we bring them out. But we have a great number of patrons, as we mentioned. We're just going to list off the few top ones this week. And so I'll start with the first few. So our top Patreons, we want to thank you, John Wilson from Synaptrix, Tomorrow's Guides, and Jordan Clark. Thank you guys so much.
Yep. Gary Knight, Mario Rodriguez, Giancarlo Gomez, David Bellinger, Dan Carr, Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, Dean Motter, Nolan Irk, Abdul Rahim, and many, many more.
Yep. So go to the website, autosolutions.com/about-us/sponsors to get all of our Patreon supporters. And again, it was great. I think we saw probably half our supporters there at the conference. So those Patreon supporters were there. It was really good to see, and enjoyed catching up with some of you. And if I didn't catch up with you next time, please say hi. Let me know who you are. I know most of the ones on there, but there are a few names that I haven't met in person. And if you guys are at CF Summit, definitely look us up there as well. Come tell us you're a Patreon. Be good to say hello. Put a face to the name in person, and we always appreciate mixing with our community members. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry, I'm still recovering from the box. It was a long week, but thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week. And thanks again. Remember, a lot of stuff coming to you. Go check out all those blog posts and all the content. Tons and tons of great stuff for you. And see you soon. Thanks, Dan.
See you later, guys. No problem, Gavin. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.